Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Friday, May the 12th, and we are in for what appears to be a good start to the end of the week with all three U.S. indices in the green. The Dow up 90 points, S&P 500 up 17, and the NASDAQ up 70, all pre-market. We've got about an hour and 20 minutes heading into the open. If we look at the individual stocks, so what we have on tap for next week is a lot of retail stocks going to be reporting. So we've got the likes of Walmart reporting next week. We have the likes of Home Depot reporting next week. So this will be interesting to hear from some of these big retail names on and around how retail sales are doing, because retail sales have taken a bit of a hit this quarter. Things have definitely softened on the retail side with the consumer, probably due to inflation and the cost of goods in the marketplace. Not just your staple goods such as food, but also things like your rent and housing costs, as well as gasoline costs. Most people still driving combustion engine cars, and outside meals or meals and entertainment. So with all of those things rising, consumers typically have to cut back in certain areas, and travel seems to be an area where they're continuing to spend. So it's likely that we'll see that the retail numbers might come in a little softer than expected. That said, particularly in the US, where consumers are somewhat landlocked around their mortgages because of the length of the mortgage in the US typically being about 30 years, and if they've gotten a mortgage 2 or more years ago at a very low interest rate, they're highly unlikely to be moving to a new home where they need to get a mortgage at a much higher interest rate. So with that, we may see the ability to redirect some of those dollars they have to do-it-yourself type of home improvement stores like Lowe's and Home Depot and other big box retailers. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out next week. Not making any forecasts there. We saw that Amazon's e-commerce sales and Shopify's were down for the year, or were lower than expected. So I'm expecting that retail is going to be a little bit lower as we go into this quarter, and that may turn as we move forward in the year, but really too early to tell at this point. If we look at oil, oil is making a small comeback. I mean, it's been on a rise this week, and crude is starting to come back, so it's getting closer to the $80 mark. We really need to see this up to $85 or $90, which I do believe we will see by the June-July timeframe. And that's going to lift all of the oil stocks if that occurs. So may not be a bad 30, 60-day investment there in oil if that's a belief that you hold as well. If we turn to tech, we've got some big names reporting next week and the following week. So we are in the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks. A lot of the cybersecurity firms are reporting in the next couple of weeks. I do like CRM still in the 275 range. I think it's got a lot of upside potential there. I like PanW. It's come down from 300. I think it'll get back up to the 320 kind of range. It's at 295 now. Net is making a bit of a comeback. It took a tumble after earnings, but it's slowly climbing back, so we'll see if that continues. Microsoft is a strong buy, in my opinion, at 412, although it could dip down into the 390s. It also could go up into the 430s, so it's hovering there. ARM had decent earnings and results the other day, but future expectations were a little off. It was down pre-market and then recovered quickly yesterday, so we'll see that it's up pre-market today. If we look at other semiconductor-related stocks today, AMD is up. Qualcomm is up. We have Lam Research, which is up. Broadcom is up as well as we go into the open. And then Meta is starting to climb back, a stock that I am a big advocate of. I think that's going to be back in the mid fives in the next 3 months or so. We've got Baba, which announces results next week as well. So it has earnings in 4 days. It'll be interesting to hear what's coming out of China on that front. And then NVIDIA today. So NVIDIA has been a great stock to trade recently. Lots of volatility, just a matter of waiting for the right entry point. I mean, if you look at the chart from this morning, it's been down at 893. Now it's up around 898. Probably going to hit into the 905, 910 range today, in my opinion, based on what we're seeing in other semiconductors. Adobe, which is not going to announce until, I believe, mid-June. If we look at the dates, June 13th, it's starting to make it's continuing to make a climb upwards. I do like Google today if it opens down $1.33. If you can get that in the low 170s or even in the 169s, I think that's a strong buy. Could be a 1 or 2% move there in the next couple of days. And then banking. Banking has been quietly making a comeback. And these are some of the strongest businesses out there from a balance sheet and financial statement perspective. I really like SoFi. I've talked about that a lot. But one that has been a real quiet mover upwards has been Goldman. Goldman up now at 455, down at 390 less than a month ago. This has made some big moves. Morgan Stanley as well, down in the low 90s, if not high 80s in the last month, now up at 98 and climbing. And then JP Morgan was down at 92 after earnings, and above that, I think it was 206 going into earnings, somewhere in there, definitely above 200, and now at 197. So all of these are quietly making the move up. Just be careful in here because there are some regional banks that still have some exposure to commercial paper, and that commercial paper and loan discussion has really fallen off the narrative roadmap. It's not something being discussed as frequently, and sometimes when those things are discussed and then they go away, they can rear their ugly head quickly and cause for stocks to go into a decline. So that's where we are today, going into our Friday. Trade carefully, mitigate your risk, and if you like these videos, please subscribe and hit the like button.